Thank you for tuning in for part 2 of the conversation. So part 1 is on the channel as well, so make sure that you watch it. But we're continuing the conversation of our music videos needed for the advancement of the Christian music genre. And the idea isn't to draw any conclusion, it's just to discuss and give our opinions on it. We do kind of go on a tangent, but it's a good tangent, it's a great conversation. I want to say thank you to those that helped film, thank you to everyone who participated in the conversation as well. I know that it was like a time of night that's like, I'd rather be sleeping, but I appreciate you all, and thank you for supporting the album-based movement. In terms of the video, there's some footage in there that could be a little bit better, but we are working on improving all the time. So I just want to say thank you for watching and subscribe. All right, here we go. We have a lovely studio audience here. Would like to make some comments. Go on, Karis.
I have a question. Do you ever find that when you listen to that song and it hits the spot, you know it's perfect, and then you see the video and it changes your whole perspective, you know, for the worst almost? I don't know, does that mean that they are necessary in terms of it could be one way in your mind, and then when you see it, actually, it doesn't quite hit the spot?
I think I see where you're coming from. I've watched the video before, or even sometimes it makes me think of when you see a film for a book. You know, I remember watching a film for a book once, and one of the characters was of a specific nationality. And I'd read the book, and I didn't realize this whole time that they were of this nationality. When I saw the film, I was like, oh my gosh! So many of the jokes that were made in the book now suddenly made sense. And I can understand where you're coming from in terms of it can be confusing, but I think the person who made the song and also made the video, it's their expression, you know, as an artist or a minister or whatever you want to call it. And so even if you have a different perception of the song, it may affect you or minister to you or impact you in a specific way, but they're the author of that video or they're the author of that song. And so really, when you see in the video, you're seeing the author's intent or the author's point of view. So even though I think it can maybe be discouraging because it's not how you perceived it, it's still necessary because that's the artist's view, that's their art, that's their expression. And so I think it's necessary because if you're missing that, then you're not getting the message is not being communicated in its full effect.
Okay. I hear that. I think having got an interest in art, I also see a lot of things online targeted at Christian artists in terms of this person has gone too far or this person has crossed the line. And I guess that's not what you were asking, but there also is, I would say, a danger in terms of obviously your personal interpretation and then knowing who your audience is. I'm not one to conform because someone's scared that you put, you know, a black square and they saw something that a black square meant, you know, witchcraft or something. But if that's okay, let me try and be more frank, because I don't want to call people out because I don't agree with some of the things that have been said. But for instance, some people get upset about a choice of outfit someone's made in a music video, and this thing will go viral. So and so's worn X, so and so's worn Y, and I'm with you. That's an expression. That's what they wanted to wear. So and so look good. So mind your business. But if it's going to cause, like the Bible says, it's going to cause someone to stumble, you know, that we have to also be mindful of that person and understand other people's weaknesses. So I think I'm all for art, like I'm 100% all for it, but I think unfortunately, because of some of the, I don't know if we've put the limitations on ourselves, like as the church, as a whole church, it can cause problems. Just it's being expressive, which is unfortunate. And maybe that's why I think some people don't even make music videos or won't make certain choices in their videos as well. Sorry, tangent, but
No,
yeah,
is it okay if I?
Yeah.
I think it's a brilliant tangent. But I think it's really hard for artists in that regard to express themselves freely, because I think really a lot of this issue It's all right, bring on. A lot of this issue, it can come from a cultural perspective,
Yeah.
again. So, if somebody uses, I don't know, going back to the idea of clothing that you might be wearing. I mean, within a certain culture, something that somebody wears might be perceived to be too revealing. Whereas if you go to a completely other culture, it's not perceived to be that way. I would use it as a simple example. I mean, so then it becomes hard because you're juggling the ideologies of two separate cultures in something that could potentially be internationally seen. Well, how are you supposed to manage that expectation? I think obviously there should always be Christian lines, guidelines for what you're doing. But I think people who are artists, it's very hard for them to maintain, some semblance of balance in what they do.
And Pastor David, you obviously in your line of work deal with a lot of different Christian, variants, kind of what Adrian said, how that impacts choices people make. How would you, maybe I've come to you as an artist, or even since we have an artist here, let's hypothetically put, Louise come to you as an artist, maybe someone from church has said something about something in the video. How would you minister to her, or what advice would you give?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think there's a distinction between whether we should make videos and what kind of videos we should make. And I think that's what we're talking about to some degree, what kind of videos we should make. And I think it points to something that's missing, which is, with gospel artists, the pastoral care and the pastoral supervision is often missing. And so we find out that they have crossed the line, not as they're approaching it, but after they've crossed the line. And so I think there's something missing around making sure that people in the music industry have the pastoral care that they need, the spiritual guidance, the spiritual supervision that doesn't cramp their style, but prevents them from making elementary mistakes that compromise their contribution to the church. And I think, to me, that's a key issue that we've got to navigate. And I think if the video reflects the integrity of the lyrics of the song and people like the song, then they're kind of on safe ground. But if the video doesn't reflect the lyrics of the song, then it obviously induces in people a conflict. And I think if there's pastoral care in place, or there's not even pastoral care, if there's a mature person advising the artist, I think it saves them a lot of hassle. But I think a lot of gospel artists, and I know a lot of them, I think they act outside the confines of pastoral care. And I think that's because pastors don't know how to deal with it often, because they're often as important as the pastor because of their profiles. So there's a kind of competition going on. But that's another story.
Yeah, that's another video. that's interesting. That's interesting. Someone was waving at me in the corner of my eye, or did I imagine that? No? No one waved at me. Really? That's a bit scary. Okay. I'm gonna admit, I really feel like we did not look at the question as such, but yeah.
I got a kind of question to raise. So obviously the initial topic question was, are music videos necessary for the gospel industry? I guess the question I have is what your definition of the gospel industry is. Is it a industry which actually is a ministry for sharing the gospel and bringing more people to Christ, or is it another genre of secular music? And I think 9 times out of 10 we would say it's the first one, but actually if we drill into it, actually sometimes it is about getting people to know the gospel and know Christ, and sometimes it's about actually it's just a genre. And my point is, depending on which one it is, depends on how important a music video then becomes, because it's different objectives you're trying to achieve. With it being a genre of a music industry, you're trying to get more people to see your message. You're trying to get more people to know you as an artist, and you're trying to sell more records, if you want to put it that way. If it's actually about getting people to know the gospel, getting them to know Christ, well, you use Christ and the disciples as an example of how to get a message out. So then it becomes part of that, but not the fundamental thing that underpins it. And for me, it's actually a more fundamental question around what is the purpose of the gospel industry, and actually is it about sharing the gospel and bringing people to Christ, or is it actually another genre of secular music?
Okay. I would ask a question. So, are you, in your saying what you said, do you think it's problem? Would you say it's an issue if it's the second? So, if people are making it as an industry choice, was that it was just, or are you just making the distinction?
Making the distinction,
Okay.
but I think it comes kind of back to the point Pastor David was making. Fundamentally, if it's about the gospel, you would submit yourself to pastoral care, ensuring that actually the objective aligns up with what Christ would want you to do. If it's the latter, then, well, definitely it's fundamental, because you're competing with other genres who are commercially founded on music videos and being able to broadcast themselves in the same way other genres do. But I guess, I don't know if I'm being clear on the point, but I think the distinction between what actually the real objective of each artist is depends on how important that tool becomes.
I thank you, because I think what you said is really important, and one of the interesting things I see a lot online is that whole debate around that. And I'm kind of one of these people who's in the middle on the fence about the whole subject matter, and I don't think that you were trying to, what you're saying was not in an you're not accusing. I'm kind of of the mind, okay, I'm a designer. Everything I design isn't necessarily for a Christian purpose. So it's my job. Am I a Christian designer, or am I a designer? And that's, or a designer that's a Christian. And that's something, again, that's become very controversial in the music industry, because someone said they don't want to be called a Christian rapper. They said they're a rapper and they're a Christian, so that comes out in their content. And quite a few people have made that statement, and a lot of people didn't like it. And I mean, either way, whatever. But I think one of the things, like you're saying, is more of another question. Is it an issue if someone is doing it for industry? Does it then become that you're not about the gospel? And why do we do that with music and we don't do it with finances? Why are you not a finance manager for only churches? Why, do you know what I mean? Why are you not a business manager making sure that all the Christian charities are, we're seeing charities all over suffer in the UK anyway, but do you know what I mean? So do we apply it to all areas? And again, like I said, I don't think that was what you were saying. You're bringing a very valid point, but then if we then look at it and say, okay, maybe if you're a Christian musician, it should look like X. Like, why do not all of our jobs look like that?
Am I okay to come in on that?
Yeah.
I guess for me, the challenge I see with that, because I think it's a very valid argument, and I kind of had the conversation with some musicians and artists to the point, because they put the challenge to me. Well, actually, why aren't you doing with your expertise everything for Christian benefit? I guess the challenge is the label gospel. So if you had pastors going out and saying we're pastors, but actually they're not actively trying to advance the gospel, well, there's a bit of a catch-22 there. And I think if you just said I'm a musician or I'm an artist, as opposed to I'm a gospel artist,
there would come the immediate expectation that all your work is about advancing the gospel. And I think it's the labelling that sometimes causes the confusion in some of that discussion.
I mean, at the same time, I think there is a lot of safety in that as well, because let's say new Christians or things like that, I think it's sometimes having a genre where that can edify Christians and it's quite clear, it's good, it's necessary, and it has a purpose. There's, so like you were saying, not everything you're gonna watch, or if you know that it's a trusted source, that's where the safety is, and that's we need that as kind of a body somewhere, things we can watch, things that are fantastic and things that are better than kind of what's out there in terms of the music industry as a whole. So I think obviously what you were saying as well, that the Christian kind of music industry is still evolving, still growing, and ultimately if you're kind of serving God, and your creativity is going to come from a pure place. So sometimes it can look newer or different, or involve your expression, because that is ultimately, some of the songs and some of the videos are people's experiences, so it's very real. Sometimes it's not as constructed as going through the process. Sometimes somebody's been through something, they make a song, they make a video to reflect that, and that's what it looks like. So in a sense, it's still very much, the kingdom is being advanced, because sometimes you need that kind of raw, simple video that you can watch and be moved by. So I think in that sense, sometimes it's, you want to advance, but you don't want to harm at the same time. So it is finding that delicate balance of having your art from God, from a pure place, and from a place that is, for the edification, for the benefit of the kingdom, consistently, even if it does look something new or something that perhaps people aren't used to. And I guess when anything is being kind of moved on or done, everyone's always going to have something to say, but it's really having that piece. If that video is not for you, use wisdom. Don't watch it. Not everyone's going to understand everybody's art, and it's not to say that we can't. Some things aren't a bit, probably shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, at the same time, it's like, yeah, do that, because we need to be real. Like, some things should be displayed on video, and some topics should be talked about, should be discussed, because somebody needs that. It's real. So I guess again, it's just that delicate balance.
I'd say, adding on to Crystal's point, coming from a lot of people's experiences, they can sort of relate to sort of the rappers or the artists who are speaking their message on their music videos. So I believe that it is necessary, because if somebody is going through a certain situation that they have no one else that they can relate back to, but they see a Christian artist who is going through the same thing or has surpassed or succumbed whatever the situation they were going through, then it puts them in a place where they can say, oh, okay, there is a God who can help me, because he clearly helped them in that situation. And also, we can't really play it safe anymore, because we've done that. And I'd say, from my perspective, in the new generation, we want to see something fresh and new, and something that we can relate to. So I'd say that as long as it's from God and it's from your heart, then you can be gritty, you can be raw. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, on the back of that, I think that, like, directly to the question, the answer then has to be unequivocally yes, because images are important, and if you add an image to music, you get an atmosphere, and in an atmosphere you can impart a message, right? And if you have, and if you look at art that moves you and that you remember, it makes experiences new again. You find something peculiar in something that was familiar to you. Like, someone tells you a story you've heard 1,000 times, but tell it in a certain way, it sticks with you in a new way. A great example, even like this morning's or yesterday's word for today, about the guy who's building a train. His son falls at the bottom of the train. He realizes he's going to have to sacrifice his son to save the fall, the train coming, and the people go by and they're just drinking their tea, and no one cares, right? So, really nice way visually of imagining a man screaming at a train to remember the sacrifice God makes for Jesus Christ. But if someone tells you that story so many times, don't you care that God sacrificed Jesus? He's like, yeah, no, okay. But like, to look at it and to see it anew, afresh, is to re-experience it. So I think when your message is going 2,000 years old, it would be useful to have a way of packaging it so that people really hear it again.
I'm mindful. I want to end there. Obviously, this conversation could continue for a really long time. But thank you. Like, I'm just like so many things to think about. And I want to read a scripture, which I really should have loaded on my phone before, but bear with me. And basically, the scripture talks about what we see, how important it is what we see through our eyes. So this is Matthew 6:22, and I'm just going to read. I'll read 23 as well, actually. No, I won't. I will read to 24. Okay. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light that is within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And on that note, I'd like to end. Yes, thank you for watching, and if you're not already subscribed, subscribe and visit Tumblr as well. And yeah, thank you.